Methamphetamines are in every school that we've been to. Poor schools, rich schools, your private schools, your struggling communities with the smallest numbers of kids in the school. And it's everywhere. It is the hardest thing to get clean, the hardest thing imaginable.
You don't have to look hard and you don't have to search very far to realize that the Montana Meth Project has had a profound impact on our state. This has been coming from the hearts of Montana teens, and it has really been a grassroots movement where Montana teens are able to speak out on this issue and actually have a voice.
I think it's important to find a place for kids to be involved. They have a lot of passion. And when they do it, it means more to them.
So I'm thinking maybe like poster size signs, but the idea is to see if we can't get another 20, 30, 40 kids signed up on Monday to do this before it's too late to register. So marchagainstmeth.org, big part of your sign.
When they start to get excited, then there's no stopping them. They made probably a dozen large posters and 50 or 60 little posters to put in the bathroom stalls, to put in by the drinking fountains, and just to get people to pay attention to the message.
Publisher, you could do some smaller ones with the same information to put in the stalls in the bathrooms, because that's good to get a little potty press.
This was just a poster that me and one of my friends made, and she pretty much did all the letters on it, and then I colored it in for like 2 hours after school.
Helena has a huge population of people who are not only, using meth, but are making it. And these kids can tell you, names of people who are actually cooking meth. And that's what scares me, is the kids know and we don't.
Every week it seems like there's a meth lab getting busted or a kid being affected by meth. We're in such a small community, we all see the effects of it every day. So I don't see why anybody would be against marching against meth.
Free sweatshirt if you come. It's on February 16th.
Meth is a very serious drug. None of us had seen anything like it in terms of its impact. And one of the reasons for that is that young families, the parents used meth a lot, and it impacted their ability to parent their children. At one point, we had over 50% of our kids in foster care were there because of their parents' meth use. That's a staggering number.
In 2005, my recollection is that they had 17 sheriffs in Cascade County, and they were spending virtually all of their time trying to grapple with this methamphetamine problem. And I will never forget the day over lunch telling us about the methamphetamine labs and how methamphetamine was manufactured in these labs. And to this day, the story was just so disturbing. The response to it was so palpable that it just got my attention, and I thought that somebody needs to do something about this.
We were not going to be able to prosecute or arrest our way out of that problem. The use was too broad. There was too much meth available, too many people were using it, then becoming addicted, starting to commit crimes to support their habit. The Meth Project did some baseline surveys before we started. 2/3 of the kids said that meth was readily available. 1/3 of the kids, now we're talking about teenagers here, 1/3 of the teenagers said they knew people that used meth. 1/3 of those teenagers said they didn't perceive meth use as a serious risk.
My first contact with meth, I was 16 years old. It was the beginning of my junior year of high school. A friend and I one day knew somebody and we knew where to get it, and we decided that we wanted to try it. And I loved the way it made me feel, and I wanted to continue doing it. The feeling that I got the first time I used was unlike any other feeling ever, and the body is really an amazing thing that it gives such pleasure, and it's unfortunate that a drug feels that good because then people want to continue to do it. I believe that if the meth ads were around when I was 10, 12, in my early teen years, it would completely have changed my perspective, and it also would have given my parents an opportunity to look at my behaviors and the things that I was doing, and it would have not gotten as far as it went if I would have had a clue how devastating it made things in my life.
This campaign is much different, the Meth Project, than any other anti-drug campaign in the country. The idea that you can campaign to market a product, you can do the exact same to unmarket a product. So the Meth Project, really what it does is it unsells meth to kids.
I love my boyfriend. We've been together since like 8th grade. He's my best friend. He takes care of me.
People do sell their bodies. People do, pick scabs and pluck their eyebrows out and rob and steal, and that's real, and it's because of meth that people do those things.
It allows teens to tell their own personal struggles with meth, to tell their stories to teens of today, other people's personal trials with this, and so it allows people to really get a glimpse as to what are the destructive and the disastrous effects of this drug.
Methamphetamine is the fastest acting addictive agent known to man. From that you get the whole "not even once" campaign. Don't try it, don't experiment with it, don't go there.
I'm really tight with my friends. We do everything together. And whatever happens, they look out for me.
In my experience and my period using, I did experience things that the ads present and that the ads are reenacting. And unfortunately, it's real life scenarios. I grew up in the Flathead Valley, northern Montana. It really was an easy childhood. We had horses and I had a pony, and I have an older sister and a younger brother. It was really easy, and it was a lot of fun growing up. My dad was pensioned off of the LAPD, and he didn't want us to be raised in California because it was too harsh of an environment. He definitely was trying to find one of the last place on earth drugs were, I think. So he chose Montana. The high school that I went to, Whitefish High School, it's a wealthy community. It's a resort town. Right there going into Glacier National Park. A lot of celebrities here and there, and a lot of celebrities' kids, and so there was a lot of money in the school. The first time I skipped school, actually, my freshman year, it was a couple weeks in, and I'd met this gal on the bus, and I thought she was pretty cool. She would talk about partying, she had these boyfriends, and she just seemed like she had a pretty cool life. And she asked me if I wanted to skip school with her one day, and we were going to go over to one of her friend's house. And when he got off work, he was going to buy us alcohol, and then we were going to go to a football game. I started smoking pot and drinking. So it's so easy in high school to get caught up in the wrong group. There was one or two that looked pretty clean cut, and so that's the people I would introduce to my parents. We were sitting there, and I'd ask this guy, I said, can you get me a boost? And he was like, no. But later that night at the party, he invited me to this private party. It was a rock, and they were crushing it up, or they were melting it, in this light bulb. And I just remember being like, this is kind of weird, maybe a little sketchy. Some of these guys are super freaky sitting in here with me. And, but I'd already been drinking and partying, and I was just up for something new. And that was the first time I used meth. I had no idea what it was. I had no idea.
I'm gonna try meth just once. I'm gonna smoke this just once. I'm gonna steal just once. going to sleep with him for meth just once.
I'm going to try meth just once.
In 2000, maybe even through 2005, Montana was in denial about the impact of the drug and how widespread it was. The kids reported themselves that 13% of Montana youth were using methamphetamine. That's a staggering number. 13% of our kids, high school kids, were using methamphetamine.
As time went on, like, it became more about just the feeling of the drug, and it was painful to snort it. I mean, it hurts and it tastes bad as it's draining down your throat, but you feel so good that, you know, you almost start to enjoy that, the nastiness of it, and you need it. Like, you know, if you don't have that drainage down the back of your throat, or, you know, the aftertaste from smoking it in your mouth, you know, your day's not complete. I started out, I went through my savings. I'd gone through about $6,000. I started stealing money from my parents. After a while, you know, it got to the point where you just couldn't steal enough. And, you know, because I wasn't old enough to go pawn the stuff myself, you know, you just wound up not seeing the money. And so I just figured I was gonna do whatever it was gonna take to have my drugs. So I started just trading myself. And that's where, I don't know, I just went all the way, you know, and I didn't care what happened, what I had to do. And that's when I just gave up and I just decided I just didn't want to be alive. Should you be so lucky to get into treatment, it's not about some magic that's going to happen in a program. If you're going to use the tools that are provided to you in the outside world, or, you know, are you going to go back and give up? My dad and I were at the kickoff or the launch of the Montana Meth Project, and it was so powerful because the message of not even once for kids and for people everywhere is, you know, it was a blatant honesty attempt, an approach of being, this is really what this is like. You know, this isn't don't do drugs, you're gonna go to jail. This is, I am choosing and trying to inspire kids and look at what they know and to make the choice to say, not even once am I going to try this, and not even once am I gonna put my life at risk and my future.
As the campaign rolled out, we were overwhelmed with the positive response from the teenagers in the state. And this is very, very unusual for a drug prevention effort. About the best you get out of a teenager with a drug prevention effort is somebody kind of rolling their eyes and dismissing you. And yet we found in the state of Montana, the support was heartwarming, it was universal, and it was sincere. We get into the summer of 2006, and there was all this support for the project, and we didn't know what to do with it. Paint the State was basically about providing a release valve, about providing an opportunity for people to participate, where people could come up with monumental scale art to express their outrage about methamphetamine. No one could have imagined the response.
My motivation to become involved with the Meth Project was that very first summer that it had started, and it was with the Paint the State contest. And it was a public art display, the largest public art contest that Montana has ever seen. It was inspired by its ability to really correct a problem that was going to become a huge issue if not dealt with. I painted a 10-foot by 10-foot mural that hung on one of our local architects' buildings. They were popping up around Great Falls, really creating a message that teens were speaking out against methamphetamine.
This doesn't feel like an advertisement. You know, this is a mark that's been left on fences, on the sides of barns, on brick buildings. As you're going through towns, you know, it's billboards and it's things on fence posts, and it's just things that are painted that force people, even adults. It's a constant reminder. And I think for kids to be able to get involved and leave their mark on something, it's kind of like tagging, but in a positive form.
Thousands of people participated. Over 660 large-scale art installations were installed across the state of Montana, from Kalispell to Miles City. It turned out to be the largest public art project in history. It was a great, great event. It was a wonderful thing to be part of. Paint the State was simply a response to an overwhelming outpouring of support by the young people in the state of Montana.
The Meth Project is unique. There's nothing been done like this ever. After the Montana Meth Project started running its commercials, we saw a 45% drop in teen meth use. Attitudes changed dramatically. Parents were talking to their children, kids were talking among themselves. There was an increased perception among young people that this was a dangerous product, that we didn't want to use that. The problem hasn't gone away. Our costs are still very high. Prior to 2005, we estimate that it cost in Montana about $300 million to society. That's the cost for incarceration, enforcement, drug treatment, putting children in foster care. That has dropped since 2005 to about $200 million, but that's still very expensive and it's still way too high, so we have more work to do.
The Paint the State campaign was great momentum and energy, great expression, and the March Against Meth really was able to turn that expression and took political action to the state and said, help fund this project.
Project petition, and the day of the February 16th, the kids that signed up to go to the march will be delivering CMRs to the legislature. The whole idea is, now that we're in a legislative year for Montana, the Meth Project is looking for some state funding. It has been privately funded since its beginning, and now we're looking for the state to kind of take some responsibility in a project that has paid such great dividends to our state.
Because meth can destroy lives. It's not anything that I want anyone I know to be a part of or anything.
Meth is just the worst drug. I would like the program to keep going because it sounds like the program's working. That's why I signed it.
And it really makes an impact when the teens of today take that message to the legislators themselves.
Meth is like a really bad deal, you know, and people shouldn't be doing that kind of stuff like that to mess up their system.
On February 16th, about 150 CMR students will gather at Helena High School for a pre-rally event and then proudly march to the state capitol where they will deliver that very important message to our legislators.
Yeah, my parents think I'm sleeping at your house.
Yeah, I'm just jumping in the shower.
Okay, bye.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
We have 2 classes working on this to come up with some commercials in-house to work on the March on Meth at the Capitol on President's Day. We've been working for about a week and a half right now. We're going to plan on working another week. Some are advertising the actual march and the sign-up dates and trying to push people to get them to sign up. So these will be aired over announcement time during homeroom.
You know, putting your own video together just is kind of a start. You know, hopefully people will get the idea, you know, that meth ain't the coolest thing.
I'm making a before and after picture of a meth addict, trying to take a meth picture and recreate it like a normal person would look and show the difference after you've started using meth.
We did this one where we have these bunch of broken tapes and we're all like showing like how stupid things are, and then like it says like, would you rather do this or meth? And like either one's dumb, and it talks about the March on Meth and all that stuff.
We do have a lot of creative young men and women out here, so it's a good outlet for them to kind of express themselves.
Good morning. Good, how are you?
The March Against Meth is one of the great grassroots uprisings in history. Thousands of people getting in buses, traveling hundreds of miles, sleeping on the floors of motel rooms, getting up at 6 in the morning, marching on the Capitol, besieging their legislators, besieging their governor.
I'm participating in the March Against Meth because it's kind of ruined my life. My parents used to do it and I got taken away.
We are expecting 41 buses, over 2,100 kids. It's going to be a great turnout. Excellent cause. There's nothing better than the Meth Project. It's awesome. The effects of it that it has on kids, and even adults, seeing the billboards and the commercials, and it's wonderful. The amount of meth use is down, and it's great.
I support the Meth Project. I think it's pretty cool. I've never been to anything like this.
Once I heard about it, I just thought that it was a really good thing. As a child, my parents used it, so I had to be removed from the situation. It makes me want to help the kids that don't get so lucky.
This is great. 2,000 kids here to combat methamphetamine. Let's hear it. 2,000. In Montana, methamphetamine use is down 50%. That's because of you. Let's give yourself a big round of applause.
The March Against Meth is very much about providing a vehicle for the young people in the state of Montana to express themselves. Here we have, over 2,000 young people aged 12 to 17 years old. They don't even vote, for goodness sakes, and they're overwhelming the state capitol, petitioning their leaders.
I marched with my husband and my daughter, and we had kids talking to us and sharing stories with us all the way up to the Capitol, and their enthusiasm and excitement just gives you all the more confidence in being there.
We're saying just say yes so that the legislators keep on supporting us so we can keep up the fight against meth.
It's one thing to talk about 2,300 people, but then when you actually see it for the first time, it's really put into perspective.
Go!
When we got to the Capitol, it was like such an adrenaline rush to just be there. It was great.
The fact that it was teens themselves, and so many in such numbers, it was a really powerful experience.
My name is Karen Clem. I'm from Kalispell, Montana, and I started doing meth when I was 17 years old. It is amazing what we as Montanans have been able to achieve in bringing the ugliness of meth to our state and to the world. We have led other states across our country to start this fight as well. And we are here again today to set another example.
My name is Tim Seary, and I am a sophomore at C.M. Russell High School in Great Falls, Montana. Today we have made the decision to march together, 2,300 strong, as students from every corner of Montana, using our collective voice to speak out against methamphetamine. We have painted the state, we have created the ads, and now we have marched to the steps of the building that houses the debate and decision-making that moves our state forward. Governor Schweitzer and the 61st Montana Legislature, out of your love for the state of Montana, help us so that together we can finish the job that we have already started, to drive meth from our state and to secure a bright and optimistic future for Montana, the last best place.
This is, the heartland of America. They're talking to their leaders, they're talking to their governor. These are young people saying, help us, we need your help, okay? Come up with the money, fund the project, get methamphetamine out of our lives, do it now.
tell you, folks, one thing that we do know is when you show up with these petitions like that, and you show up in mass, the people up here on the hill behind me, we hear you. We hear you say what? Just say yes.
We were a part of something so powerful, and like listening to some of the speeches out there like almost made me cry.
I think that it's cool to be here because we're teens and we can get our voice heard.
I think the legislature heard what we had to say, and I feel good about coming here.
And to have kids stand up and say, look, we're not going to do it anymore. We don't want you. We don't want your drugs. We don't want this for our futures, for our lives, for our kids to stand up. There's nothing else like it.
We want to thank the many legislators who support the Meth Project. The Montana Meth Project is effective, it's working, and we need your help. Please contact your legislators, your governor. We need $2 million to help save Montana lives.